The following is a review for critical, analytical, and educational purposes. It is protected under Article 17 and 107 of the United States Fair Use Code. This is not an infringement on copyright. Please enjoy the review.
Hello and welcome to Doctor Who Change, where we look at the different landmarks in the history of Doctor Who, be it in front of the camera or behind the scenes. And today, let's talk about the changing of the guard of producer and script editor. When Doctor Who began, it was made with what it was due to the efforts of first producer Verity Lambert and script editor David Whittaker. And although the script editor position would change and the quality was kept, as soon as Verity Lambert left and was replaced by John Wiles, and of course the scripts that she had commissioned as her original intent of Luca Radi's scripts, The Ark and the Celestial Toymaker having both being kind of racist, you have a streak of really bad stories spanning 12 weeks that wouldn't improve until Innes Lloyd really took over with the Gunfighters, and although that wasn't his first story, it was the first one that he had any creative control over. This is just one example of the changing of the guard that can go horribly wrong, with many of the other transitions being smoother. Except for really what we have today. You see, when Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks decided to leave, they effectively made a false start for Tom Baker's era by producing the Season 12 opener at the same time when they were making Planet of the Spiders, instead of, leaving it to their successors, which caused a lot of tonal and story problems. As the incoming team of Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes wanted to change the show into a more gothic horror route instead of the action series route of the Letts Dicks team. So, let's dig into the first story of the Tom Baker era, and we see just what trouble Dicks and Letts caused for the first impressions in Robot. Let's begin with part one. We open with a short reprise of Planet of the Spiders, where the third Doctor regenerates into the fourth Doctor, as played by Tom Baker. Sarah Jane Smith goes to comfort him as Brigadier Lethbridge-Stewart calls in Harry Sullivan, played by Ian Marter, to take a look at him. They're afraid something might have gone wrong with the regeneration. The Doctor is babbling, and Sergeant Benton comes in with a report. Harry is taking the Doctor down to the sick bay, and the Brigadier remarks about how everything seems quiet. A bit too quiet for his liking. Meanwhile, a government building owned by UNIT is being raided by, a giant robot. We don't actually see it's a robot, just the claws and the mosaic filter over the camera. But, robots in the title, so, connect the dots, people. It storms in and steals a top secret file from a safe in a sequence that goes on for way too long. The Brigadier is reported to that the top secret files, a set of plans for a disintegrator gun, has been stolen. He tells Sarah Jane because the Doctor is currently out of action. She asks if she can get a pass to the think tank facilities because she's still a journalist, and she says she can definitely have it. She also has to see the Doctor and thinks that Harry's a bit too old-fashioned for her tastes. We see the Doctor in medical clothes sneak into the lab and make a break for the TARDIS. He doesn't have the key, but finds it in one of his shoes. He gets the door open, but Harry stops him. He tells him that he needs to get back to the sick bay, and we get a great scene of the Doctor trying to prove Harry that he is fit. He eventually makes the jumping rope and says when surveying his new form, he doesn't like the ears, but the nose is a definite improvement. Sort of a slam on John Pertwee's unfortunately large nose. Sarah Jane and the Brigadier, realizing that the Doctor's gone missing, find Harry tied up in the cupboard in the lab. The Doctor's trying to slip away quietly, but Sarah Jane tells him that he can't go because the Brigadier needs him because of the robbery of the plans for the disintegrator gun. He then goes back inside. The Brigadier helps Harry out of the cupboard, and the Doctor realizes that he's met the Brigadier before. He thinks he's Alexander the Great or Hannibal, but he gets there eventually. A bit confused, you see. We got back to the Mosaic filter robot raiding another government institute, but this time, it went the smart way. It did it in broad daylight. So, there's no denying it's a robot. That isn't the worst of it. I mean, it breaks the wooden lock on the door on this high-tech institute and the wall phone. The Doctor comes out of the TARDIS at unit in a Viking outfit, and the reader makes him change. He tries on a King of Hearts costume, a sparkly clown costume, and then the worst costume of all, a costume that I don't think would ever catch on, ever, with anyone. A burgundy coat, hat, and long multicolored scarf. They think this might be a good look for some reason and head off. The Doctor's then too busy at the Institute to examine the fence because of a squashed dandelion. He thinks that it was stepped on by something weighing 1/4 of a ton. The reader doesn't realize that the thief only stole enough to actually make, the disintegrator gun. The thief might be the same person as the guy that stole the plans. Sarah Jane arrives at the think tank and is ushered in. She meets the woman running the place, Miss Winters, and her assistant Jellicoe. The Doctor thinks that something not human is stealing all these parts and says to check the third ingredient for the disintegrator gun. So they get the guard put on the focusing generator. Sarah Jane gets shown around the place, which is only for frontier research, where we partake in an exposition dump about Professor J.P. Kettlewheel, the director of robotics. They explain how Kettlewheel left the facility and is working on alternative energy now. She nearly falls over and is ushered along on the tour after, the whole Kettlewell thing is brushed off. The Doctor arrives at the place where the generator is being held, and the reader tells him that the place is impregnable. The Doctor then compares it to the word unsinkable, and nothing's wrong with unsinkable, as the iceberg sat to the Titanic. The Doctor suggests the thieves will get in from below, which it does. I mean, we find, a giant hole with a unit soldier dead. Again, unsinkable at work. Sarah Jane then meets with Kettlewell, who isn't part of Think Tank. He tells her that no one can be carrying out his robotics work and ushers her out. She leaves and realizes that she can get back into Think Tank under the story that she left a notebook in one of the labs. She climbs the fence when the guard isn't looking and sneaks back into Kettlewell's old office. She finds some oil on the floor when a door slides open behind her and lumbers out the robot of the title. It asks her who she is and comes to attack her with its giant claws of death. This leads into part 2, where Miss Winters and Jellicoe come in as Sarah Jane tries to escape. Winters nonchalantly says that she knows there's a robot after her and is determined, and says that they were just having some harmless fun. Sarah Jane was determined to see the robot, so they arranged it for her. She asked if Sarah Jane would like to see it again, which of course she would. The Doctor wonders how it could be an alien invasion, because aliens that could do this type of thing wouldn't need to. They'd have the plans on their own. It also couldn't be enemy governments because they wouldn't need to steal the circuitry. So it must be a homegrown invasion from the British side. The robot lumbers out from his storeroom again. Sarah Jane asks what its purpose is. It is the K-1 robot to replace humans in any dangerous task. Sarah Jane apologizes for prying and asks if the robot's dangerous. Miss Winters decides to demonstrate by telling it to kill Sarah Jane, as Jellicoe closes the doors, locking them in. The K-1 robot goes to kill her, but can't because it conflicts with his prime directive. This puts Sarah Jane's mind at rest, but she's still jumpy at this idea of it. She pities the robot because it could easily have feelings of its own. The robot deactivates and Sarah Jane's shown out, but it has to keep quiet about all this. Once she goes, Jellicoe tells Winters that she was crazy to test the inhibitor, as it only had just been set after they made the robot, steal those parts. Giving away that, they're the ones that are stealing things with the robot. The Doctor believes that there's some sort of conspiracy going on, and Sarah Jane bursts in with Harry talking about the robot. She tells the Brigadier that something odd's going on at Think Tank. While at Think Tank, Jellicoe's taking out the inhibitor so they can perform more tests. Winters thinks that it might miss Kettlewell, then they activate it and use its visual scanner to give him the target. Sarah Jane suggests raiding Think Tank, but the Brigadier can't get the authority, and Harry suggests planning an inside man. The Doctor says that they have to have the proper scientific or medical qualifications, so they get Harry set up with a disguise. The Doctor, Sarah Jane, and the Brigadier go to meet Kettlewell, who remains with his story that the robot doesn't exist because it was dismantled.
The Doctor flatters him with his plans for solar energy, and by now the Doctor's just edging him on, so he'll tell us about the robot. He says it was the last project he worked on and ordered it to be dismantled. Winters might, of course, countermanded these orders, and he doesn't realize that the circuitry could have been altered so it could hurt people. It might even go mad because of this. And with that, the robot bursts into an office and kills the man he was ordered to kill. It breaks into the safe and steals another file, and the unit realizes that the enemy has built the disintegrator gun. The Brigadier can't find anything odd about Think Tank except some of them are part of the Scientific Reform Society, a group of cranks who want to reform society through, rationalism. Sarah Jane leaves for the night, and the Doctor wants a visit to Think Tank. With Kettlewell, there's a knock on the door, but no one's there. He closes the door, but the knocking continues, and on the other side of the apartment, in bursts the K1 robot, who's gone mad with the orders against his prime directive, and it wants help. Meanwhile, at the Scientific Reform Society, Sarah Jane interviews the leader, who explains that they want to be a ruling elite, and that would decide everything about the lesser people's lives. She notices they'd be having a meeting there tonight, but it's only for members, although, even though it's for members, it's advertised to the public. Sarah Jane then rushes out. I mean, you would too if you were confronted by Nazis. At Think Tank, the Doctor bursts into the robot storeroom to find it, which had to be dismantled. He's just putting it back together, but he's forced to leave when threatened by Winters and Jellicoe. Jellicoe tells Winters that someone from the Ministry of Health is there for a complete check. The man is Harry Sullivan. Meanwhile, the Brigadier goes to get authority from the Minister when the Doctor gets a call from Kettlewell. Kettlewell says that they need to keep the robot under control when he's captured by Winters and Jellicoe and taken away. The Doctor rushes over to his place while Sarah Jane and Sergeant Benton, now warrant officer, Benton, realize that he's gone to see Kettlewell. They find his note and rush to find him. He goes into Kettlewell's home, which he finds abandoned. The Doctor opens a window and sees around when the robot approaches him, and after confirming he is the Doctor, the robot proclaims he's an enemy of the human race and must be destroyed. They do a really bad chase scene as the Doctor is cornered behind the door. He calls into question the Prime Directive, but that does nothing. The Doctor throws his hat on it, but it's thrown to the floor, and the robot comes even closer for the kill. This leads into part 3, where Sarah Jane arrives at the scene just in time to save the Doctor from the robot. She tells us that the Doctor is a good man, and it recognizes that she felt bad for it at Think Tank. It gets confused and says that it feels pain. Benton comes in and shoots at it as it lumbers away through the unit guards. The Doctor seems to be alright, and Sarah Jane tells Benton he shouldn't have started shooting when they hear a noise from a cupboard. Inside the cupboard is a gagged and bound Kettlewell. They take Kettlewell back to Unit HQ, where he explains that the Think Tank people have been making the robot go against its prime directive by altering its circuitry. It's gone unbalanced, and Kettlewell says that he's invented a metal that the robot is made of, which can actually grow. He also discovered the metallic equivalent of a virus, which breaks down the metals into nothing. This, of course, has no significant bearing on the plot whatsoever. So they look at the Scientific Reform Society paper, and Kettlewell reveals that he was once a member. He and Sarah Jane decide that they're going to sneak into the meeting, and Benton can do nothing to stop them because technically, because of a loophole, they aren't actually members of UNIT. At the meeting, we see that the guards are dressed up in a pastiche of the Nazi uniform, and Kettlewell is let in. The Brigadier is angry that Benton for letting them go. He had no permission to raid Think Tank, and the Doctor says that they must raid without authority because there's an ultimate threat that the guy that was murdered was keeping. They see there are nuclear bomb destruction codes that were kept in that man's home that the robot stole. So the Doctor is told that Sarah Jane went off with Kettlewell, and he's outraged. He would be allowed to go with anyone like Kettlewell. Kettlewell sneaks Sarah Jane into the meeting while Winters is giving a Hitler-style speech about crushing those who aren't elite and, stuff. She brings up Kettlewell, who is, oh my gosh, a secret RS member? The Doctor's outside and doesn't have a pass. He uses a scarf to make the guard fall over, and so he gets to go in to get help. Inside, they bring out the robot to seek out and destroy all who would harm them. Sarah Jane's still hiding behind, the best hiding place ever, cardboard boxes, and, of course, is discovered. They tell the robot to kill her. The Doctor then comes out and says he's here to entertain them before his friend the Brigadier arrives. It's a very funny scene, especially when the guard from earlier lunges at him, But the doctor's kneeling over to pick up some cards, so he jumps over him and knocking himself out. Kettlebell wants to make people listen to him about alternative energy, and Winters just wants to have everyone killed and they're taken away. Unit bursts into the building but doesn't shoot anyone. Sarah Jane's let out, but none of the unit soldiers think, about shooting Miss Winters, who is kind of an open target. I mean, the robot can't shoot them all at once. It's only got one gun. The doctor thinks seriously, even if they don't shoot, the obviously placed getaway truck, that if it was more obvious, it would just have getaway truck written on the side, so they couldn't get it out. The doctor thinks that they'll have some sort of a bunker where they can get a call from Harry, who says they're evacuating and heading to a bunker. The line then goes dead as he's taken away as hostage. Unit drives out to the bunker that was built by Think Tank and, not a secret bunker whatsoever. Inside, Miss Winters has the automatic defenses activated and Sarah Jane is thrown in with Harry. The doctor notices the defenses and calls everyone to get down. Benton hears on the radio that someone's trying to contact them. It is Winters who demands to speak with the brigadier, saying that she holds 2 hostages. She says she'll never reach the doors alive or even get through them. They sent their demands with the threat of nuclear holocaust, and each superpower has 30 minutes to surrender. With Harry, the robot standing guard when Sarah Jane is brought in. Benton lets off some grenades and they prepare to advance. The doctor then uses a sonic screwdriver to blow up some landmines that would have stopped them from getting in, and they approach the bunker door. The doctor uses his sonic screwdriver as a sonic lance to cut the lock out for them. Jellicoe realizes that they're getting through, so Winters makes the robot be used with the disintegrator gun. Kettlewell is forced to get the codes ready for the missiles, while outside the doors open as Unit falls back. The robot lumbers out and with the disintegrator gun, it fires on a Unit soldier who disappears. But the brigadier, he's brought something really special to deal with it. His secret weapon, you will not believe this, is a toy tank. Which of course does nothing and all hope is lost. This leads into part 4 where, inside the bunker, Winters is happy that everything's gone according to plan. Kettlewell thinks they'll surrender if their bluff is called, but they're going to push the button if demands aren't met. The countdown has started. With Harry and Sarah Jane, they're nearly out of their rope. Winters and Jellicoe go down to where they are to see what they have for food. The 2 are going to have to be disposed of later. While outside, the doctor realizes that they have nothing on the robot. The doctor wants the brigadier to draw back his men away from the door so he can slip inside through the back. The countdown is down to 80 seconds and Kettlewell wants to stop everything that's been happening, while Sarah Jane and Harry burst in and make Kettlewell stop it at 58 seconds. They decide to make a run for it. Sarah Jane tries to reason with the robots to let the doctor in. She explains that the SRS people want to start a nuclear war and kill billions. The robot threatens her life as those are its orders. Kettlewell is killed when he tries to stop it, which sends the robot into confusion. This allows the doctor and co to get inside get the disintegrator gun and slip inside. Winters makes it to the control room and sees the base was infiltrated. She then sits down to start the countdown, and the doctor bursts in, and everyone points guns at him and her. The brigadier demands that she cancels the destructor codes as the doctor gets to work at the computer, which is just as a very sophisticated idiot, stopping it at 2 seconds to spare. Meanwhile, Sarah Jane's been kidnapped by the robot, which they realize had vanished. The doctor is furious to find Sarah Jane missing, and Sarah Jane tells the robot that it doesn't have to continue killing people because everything's all over. Unit doesn't realize that what they will do to the robot because it's immune to bullets. Ben mentions the MacGuffin from earlier, so the doctor and Harry go to find Kettlewell's notes. The robot's making Sarah Jane leave the base as a Unit soldier enters and ready to fire. She tells him not to worry about her and leaves, which he does. The robot takes it to the control room, where it restarts the countdown from 300 seconds. Sarah Jane begs to know why it would do this because it doesn't want Kettlewell's plan to continue. Also, the robot can't lie. The doctor and Harry are conducting experiments while the brigadier calls them. They found the robot with Sarah Jane. Well, the doctor realizes that it has the suppressed Oedipus complex. So he tells them that they have to warn the major powers. The emergency is not over and they need to execute failsafe procedures immediately. The countdown has reached 8 seconds before the failsafe is put in place. Sarah Jane tells the robot to give up, so it drags her outside. With the doctor, they've done it, so they can make more of the virus. Outside the bunker, we get a first classic film homage in Doctor Who, where for no reason except because the plot demands it, the robot decides to grow to incredible size and picks up Sarah Jane. Of course, it's being an homage to King Kong, but the effects are laughably bad as Sarah Jane turns into a doll, not even an action figure, just a doll, and was placed on a building that wasn't there in any of the other shots. The Doctor and Harry rush to the scene, and Bessie, while the robot shoots at the soldiers, crushes one of them and kicks in a model house as the unit falls back. Also, this rampage goes on for far too long when the Doctor arrives with the MacGuffin. They then have to drive up, which takes another long period of time. Seriously, this is just padding to try to get the episode out to 25 minutes. The Doctor picks up the pail of MacGuffin, and Harry drives toward the robot, and one splash is able to make it go orange. It then shrieks and promptly turns into dust. Back at Unit HQ, the Doctor offers Sarah Jane a jelly baby, the first of many. He tells her that they had to do it, and she understands. He agrees that it was capable of great good, but also great evil. The Doctor suggests a trip in the TARDIS to cheer them up. He refuses to listen to what the Brigadier wants him to do. He's being childish, which, of course, there's no point in being grown up without being childish, sometimes at least. They decide to go, and Harry comes in. He's skeptical that a police box can travel, so the Doctor makes him step inside and see he sees for himself. He does so, and they follow him inside. They dematerialize, and we end on the Brigadier seeing them leave. He says he'll have to tell the Prime Minister that they'll be a little late to the dinner this time.
Final thoughts? Well, I hate to do this, as I know a lot of people like Robot and think it is one of the greats. But I'm sorry, it just isn't very good. I mean, part of that can be put down to the budget. Now, hear me out. I know that Doctor Who's never really been known for its great effects or budget. I mean, that's part of the reason why I love it. But Barry and Terrence Dicks decided again, produce this at the same time as Planet of the Spiders, so it looks even worse than the usual end-of-season story. I mean, it looks twin dilemma bad. This is especially apparent with the titular robot. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually think the design is really great. It have some of the same problems as the Crotons. I mean, the legs are awful and shouldn't have bended like they do, which caused most of the design problems, but the claws at the end of the arms just weren't attached very well. They were pretty much attached by string. So when they really should have just been attached directly to the arms, like kind of like a glove that the actor inside could have clamped together, kind of like this. I mean, now you can really deal with the bad effects if the story's a good one. But Terrence Dicks' story is average at best. I mean, it's a standard secret society wanting to take over the world that we have seen elements of this story before in other stories. The Ambassadors of Death, the Enemy of the World, and even the Sensorites have similar plot elements in them. And the secret society is really a laughable knockoff of the Nazis from World War II. It also doesn't help that Miss Winters is supposed to be playing our Hitler. And, well, she isn't threatening. I mean, she's the type of feminist that people really don't like because she wants pretty much to be the master race and, men be the slaves. She's pretty much a Draven from Galaxy 4. So Jellicoe, our other villain, is also not menacing. He just sort of stands there throughout parts 2, 3, and 4. I mean, he does nothing. The twist also with Kettlewell doesn't work either, as he isn't evil and just wants to do things that really wouldn't have been made him be laughed out of the room at the time, like he claims. Also, sometimes there's a lot of lapses in logic in the script. Like, there are points. I mentioned that there was a point where Sarah Jane was being captured and Miss Winters was open for like 5 seconds. They could have shot Winters and saved Sarah Jane, and it would have been fine. And, I mean, the robot was slow, so they could have easily just grabbed in and got her out with the unit people, but they don't, because the plot demands it, which is sort of a plot demands it story. Really, you can't do that and expect quality. Let's also talk how badly this paced the story is, with the main threat, aka the SRS, being defeated about a third of the way into Part 4. So the story could have easily been cut down to 3 episodes, and we would have had so many of the problems just fixed. However, this is a badly padded first 3 episodes, followed by a padded 4th. The homage to King Kong also comes out of nowhere, and the plot resolves itself using a MacGuffin in that whole metal virus thing. Okay, listen, if you write yourself into a corner, Terrence, don't just MacGuffin your way out of it. It never works. Also, kind of a minor complaint, as I've said before, it doesn't feel like a Tom Baker is playing his own Doctor, but an imitation of John Pertwee's Doctor in several places. I mean, he would come to his own in the next story, however, here it just feels like more of Unit, which really wasn't needed. So, I mean, but nothing too bad. Now, let's talk about the good parts of the story. Yes, there are quite a few good parts. Well, the main cast actually have really good chemistry. I mean, that's what really gets you through the story. Tom Baker, who's a new member of the cast, already gets along very well with Nicholas Courtney, Liz Slade, and John Levine. The comedy's also spot on with some of the more filler scenes, like the one where the Doctor chooses his new outfit, just to name a few. I mean, their chemistry is spot on, and it really shows why Thor and Sarah Jane are so well remembered. Ian artist Harry Sullivan is also written very well here, and than how he'd be written as an idiot in a uniform in most of the other stories he appears in. It really makes the story better because it allows us to use more character development of the main cast, so we can latch onto this new Doctor. So that really is why the score isn't lower when we get to the score. Also, the direction from Christopher Barry is really good, except some of the ways he decided to shoot the robot. I mean, he does the whole, what could the villain be, a giant robot? Oh my gosh! Also, the music by Dudley Simpson is also nice. Is an unobtrusive story without being intrusive. Also, I mean, it's the way that he makes the robot sound in some of the early bits is really creepy with this bleeping. So, all in all, I give Doctor Who Robot 50% for having bad effects and an average plot, but some really good character interactions to get us acclimated with the new Doctor and some good direction and musical underscoring. Well, your mileage may vary on this story, and you should really only get it if you like Tom Baker and John Pertwee's The Doctor or are just a completionist. It was released on DVD in 2007 in all regions, and so next time, well, you know how I said in the intro that this was a false start? Well, we'll take a look at the first story of the Hinchcliffe Holmes Gothic horror era of Doctor Who that really kicked off the Tom Baker era and just the classics, with The Ark in Space.
Say, what a place for a mortuary.
This isn't a mortuary, Harry. Quite the reverse.
Reverse? I'd hardly call it a nursery.
Cryogenic chamber. Old principle, but I've never seen it applied on this scale. Look at them. There must be hundreds here.
Well, when you've seen one corpse, you've seen them all.
Corpse? These people aren't dead, Harry. They're asleep. The entire human race awaiting the trumpet blast.
Dead as a door knocker.
Homo sapiens. What an inventive, invincible species. It's only a few million years since they crawled up out of the mud and learned to walk. Puny, defenseless bipeds. They've survived flood, famine, and plague. They've survived cosmic wars and holocausts. Now, here they are, out among the stars, waiting to begin a new life, ready to outsit eternity. They're indomitable. Indomitable.